It will be tied into DLP when we move towards the user cases, and then towards the back end, I've got a good portion of the content that will be demo driven. So I will drop into a lab environment, and a significant part of the content that I've actually walked through in the slides, I will have a demo or a show and tell of that in a lab environment. Okay, so if we start by walking through a brief introduction of the ICA platform and what it is. So organizations have more and more data channels resulting from the data protection strategy. It becomes very difficult to monitor, prioritize on appropriate actions for all of these events. So there's a question: how can this task be streamlined, but still efficiently identify real threats, correct risky behavior, while still being less labor intensive? So step in ICA. So ICA is our user data behavioral analytics platform. It is a single portal to consolidate, analyze, review, remediate incidents and alerts from multiple data sources. This slide shows a high-level view of those supported types of data integrations with DLP, proxy, endpoint protection, Active Directory, threat telemetry, seen to name but a few. So in a nutshell, ICA uses the information from these multiple data sources and calculates a risk score resultant on behavior it sees, identifies the riskiest users, and creates user-based risk reports for all top offenders. It correlates and consolidates multiple incidents and allows for speedy remediation. ICA essentially moves the analyst away from a single incident view to a combined, rolled up, consolidated behavioral-based view for that entity, be it a user, endpoint, or application. So if we have a look at the architecture of ICA briefly, ICA has 4 infrastructure component levels or layers. They can be deployed in a 2 or 3-tier server configuration. Firstly, there's the presentation layer, which is your ICA application with its dashboards, be that out-of-the-box dashboards or customizable dashboards, its analytics view, and the response portal. Then there's the processing layer with 2 SQL components, SQL Server Enterprise and SQL Analysis Services. These can be deployed on a single server or deployed on separate servers. Example, a dedicated SQL DB server and your dedicated SQL Analysis server. So if we go back to tiering on that, a 2-tier ICA is an ICA application server and a combined SQL server resulting in 2 servers. And then the 3-tier being your ICA application server, a dedicated SQL database server, and a dedicated SQL Analysis server. Then there is the integration layer with our integration packs supporting predefined data sources. At this layer, there is also integration wizard to support user-defined data sources. I will expand on that integration layer a little later to talk about what and how that brings information in. And then finally, the data source layer with ICA supporting multiple DLP platforms, various endpoint technologies, CASB, SIEM, and LDAP, etc. So I have mentioned this already. Although ICA supports numerous data source integrations, as DLP is the primary integration for ICA is so powerful, most I've got a few more slides that talk about generic technologies within the ICA platform, but I will then switch for the middle section in the session to talk about specifics between the ICA platform itself and it having a DLP specific data source integration. I can then highlight the significant benefits of that integration with that single data source integration. Okay, we'll now look at some ICA terminology. So today we'll talk about integration packs, which I've already mentioned. This is how we get the data into ICA. DLP incident data as an example. This is how you get your AD or HR or other types of data into ICA. Once the integration pack brings it in, ICA will then analyze it. You will hear me talk about unsupervised machine learning, the ability to identify normal business patterns and those that are not. Supervised machine learning, the ability to actually teach ICA what is an acceptable incident, what is an incident that needs to be investigated, so what is a true violation. The supervised machine learning has the ability to teach ICA and allow it to become more intelligent over time as you teach it. I will not only talk about this on slides, but we'll see this in the demo as well. So one of the main benefits here with this supervised machine learning is where we get some automation benefits. We'll talk today about entity collections, which are containers for people, users, computers, and applications. We have risk vectors, which are a measurement used to assign risk to a behavior. We have scenarios, which are a predefined set of events or behavior. We have a significant number of these that are available out of the box with ICA, but you can also custom build these out yourself. It's quite a common action where we want to combine multiple different types of behavior into one scenario, which can all be done if it's not, can be done custom if it's not there available out of the box. Risk models. So a risk model is a container for grouping multiple scenarios or types of behavior across. And I think this is the key thing about it, is we can do that across multiple data types or data sources. And then action plans. So action plans is quite a powerful internal workflow tool assisting with incident remediation inside of ICA. There are the bottom two. So we've got the OLAB cube where all ICA data is stored and organized within the back end, which also brings in the analyzer. This is a graphical tool which the ICA portal uses to create dashboards, risk vectors, scorecards that we're talking about based on interaction with that OLAB cube. Dependent on time today will determine whether I will be able to. I have a couple of slides where we can deep dive on them. We've got quite a lot to get to. I'll leave these slides in the actual deck when they go out. I'll determine whether we've got enough time for me to cover those as we go through. Okay, so the last bit on the integration packs. So as I mentioned, these integration packs are how we bring data into ICA for analysis. Integration packs are turnkey, simple installation wizards. We have them for Symantec DLP, SEP, WSS. We also have them for other vendors too, with McAfee, Microsoft Active Directory, and we also have the what are called integration accelerators. They are similar to the integration packs in that they support specific data sources, but they have some additional manual installation activities, for example, additional scripts that need to be run over the wizards. An example of a supported integration accelerator being Carbon Black. Okay,
Oh, glad you mentioned that, Daryl, because Raj, who's a panelist with us here today, is a carbon black expert, and he
All
just
right,
sent me a
okay.
note saying, "Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget, there's carbon black integration as well available in the
All right,
technical."
okay.
So
Yeah.
thanks
I've
for
got
mentioning it.
yeah. That comes under its own integration accelerator. But yeah, we have support for carbon black.
Fantastic,
No,
thank you.
have you configured that before, just out of interest?
I haven't, no, but I do have a couple of peers that have. So if you want any insistence with that, I can reach out to them for support with it.
I like to have a play with this sort of stuff. So that'll be something we can do after this. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so after these, I've got a couple more slides that I'm going to talk about unsupervised and supervised machine learning. Then we're going to switch to this DLP slant on ICA. So in relation to the integration packs for DLP, Symantec DLP, there are two separate integration packs, one for data in motion and one for data at rest. As a note, it's recommended that with any ICA implementation, be it DLP, be it proxy, be whatever the footprint of it is, it's recommended that the Active Directory or HR data is brought in first before any incident-based integration or pack or accelerator. Using these integration packs, you define what data is populated into ICA. So what data is mapped across. With Active Directory data types, you're really looking to augment that data that's coming in from DLP. So a user's, not just users, a user's manager and a user's employee type, his Active Directory group membership, his department, all of his peers, even does he have a leaving or departure date. So when does all of this happen? So this happens a couple of times in ICA in a couple of different ways. So if we have a look at the slide that's on the screen at the moment, you see the job status title. Have I got? You've got the job status title. There are two main jobs within that job status. One is called.
Sorry, Dale. We're looking at the slide with integration packs. Is that the slide you're expecting?
Yeah, that's the right one. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, bud.
Yeah, if you have, it's hard to see.
Oh, I see. I got it now.
You've got for some reason it's not showing. I haven't got the actual zoom in screenshot on it. I'll try and get that for when.
Apologies. I see it. Yeah.
We'll see this when we go. We'll see this when we go into the lab anyway. But essentially, on that job status type, we have these two primary jobs. You've got the intraday job, which runs every 2 hours, starting at 9 a.m. in the morning. The intraday job will pull in the data from the data sources. It will normalize the table and move the information into a table itself. So it doesn't do a great deal. I do have the specifics of the differences between the two jobs. But the main one is the second job, the nightly job, which runs of an evening, as you would expect. This is where data normality analysis happens. The risk analysis happens on all entities. Metric values are reported, and the data is indexed into those scenarios. So from an integration packs perspective, it's these two processing jobs that's pulling in the data and processing it. Okay, before we start to move on to the specifics of ICA and DLP, we have these last two slides that are quite important for two reasons. First, I'd like to talk about unsupervised machine learning, and I'll come on to supervised machine learning in the second slide. So first, when I say unsupervised machine learning, this happens on its own within the ICA engine. This happens when as incidents and data flows into the actual platform. This is our ICA proprietary algorithm, which analyzes all of the data coming in. This again happens during those two processing jobs that I've talked about. ICA will look at the data, analyze it, and it will compare it with what it has seen happen previously. So ICA sees new incidents and determines, how does this compare to all of the rest of the incidents that I've seen at this particular time of day, as an example. ICA completes this comparison using around 5 to 7 different data points as a part of that proprietary algorithm. So what ICA is primarily looking for is this activity or behavior. Is it consistent? Is it highly consistent? Is it something that happens the same time of day during business hours? Or is it something that happened at 1 a.m. on a Sunday and has never happened before? The net results of this is ICA assigns these incidents a normality rating. So we have 4 different normality ratings. You can see 3 of them on the screenshot there. You have highly consistent, you have normal, you have unusual, and very unusual. We'll see this with hands-on in the demo, but if you look on the right-hand side, we have the dashboard widget screenshot. It shows over the past few days, we've seen some normal incidents, but we have also seen a bunch of unusual and very unusual incidents highlighted in yellow and orange. So from there, we can target these and investigate why these are unusual. We can actually drill in from the bar chart or the pie chart directly and start to get some visibility of the incidents that have made up that spike in that behavior. So from an unsupervised machine learning perspective, we are now going to be able to prioritize based on that spike in unusual behavior. Again, this unsupervised machine learning, this processing is taking place during those 2 integration pack processing jobs. Okay, so that is unsupervised machine learning. The key point to take out of that is that normality rating, and it assigning that normality rating to all of your incidents. Supervised machine learning is really going to rely on a responder or an analyst to look at an incident and say, hey, is this acceptable? Is this incident in violation? Should this incident be investigated? It is input that drives this supervised machine learning. We call this reinforced training for the ICA system. So it will have, based on that algorithm, an idea of how it would treat an incident. What it then uses for this supervised machine learning is its own education from that analyst input. So maybe ICA determined an incident as normal based on that analyst looking at it and making a decision. This is something, so the analyst looking at it says it's normal. This is something that the classification will change. So it's all driven by this classification. There are 4 classification labels. We have unreviewed, acceptable, violation, and investigates. All incidents, when you have a default classification of unreviewed, it's now up to the responder or analyst that investigates and classifies the incidents, taking them from unreviewed to acceptable, violation, or investigate. So just to know, at this point here, it's important to understand that ICA, under its unsupervised machine learning, may have made a decision that a particular incident is very unusual. This is now where the system over time will change that decision if what the analyst inputs into the system contradicts that and says, no, I don't believe that's the case. This is acceptable, or no, this isn't normal. This is a violation. Okay, so on the screenshots, we have 184 incidents in violation that have been highlighted that the responder analyst should look at, probably first or as a priority. We've got 392 incidents that are set for investigate. Maybe I need to look at those second, or have somebody else look at them second. Then we have that significant 12,500 unreviewed incidents. The analyst now needs to start to classify these unreviewed incidents. However, here's another major benefit of this supervised machine learning. ICA is already reviewing those unreviewed incidents, and it will start to auto-classify those incidents. Over time, ICA, again, will learn and become more efficient and more effective at automatically classifying your incidents. But what this does is it significantly reduces the workload on that ICA analyst or responder. So from now we can sort of switch to common integrations. So this tie-in specifically with a DLP program. So ICA has gone through many different iterations over the years, but as of today, it really is an addition to that DLP program. ICA is primarily an advanced analytics platform for data loss prevention and those risk-based user cases. I won't dwell on this slide too much, but those in DLP will know that will know this DLP 4-phase maturity model quite well. With phase 1, visibility, you would focus on tuning policies, understanding the causes of incidents, discovering broken business processes, identifying data and files that should be moved from their exposed locations, defining and validating the remediation, reporting, and then communicating procedures you plan to use. Onto remediation, you would then begin deploying those procedures and addressing broken business processes. Here it is important to give business units a chance to improve their processes before you start the next phase, which is notifications. Now DLP is configured to automatically notify employees in real time. You're looking to compel a behavior change based on those notifications. And then finally, prevention. By now, those major business processes and the change in behavior should have been addressed through those notifications. Prevention is now where you would look to look at those things that have fallen through the cracks or that might be malicious and put in some blocks. So the point here is, for this 4-stage maturity model, it's great, and it will eventually get you to where you want to be, but it's not without its challenges. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to discuss some of those challenges, and then using ICA, offer some resolutions. So we've got 3, I'll call them user cases, because that will, it's tagged throughout the actual slide deck. Those 3 columns or tiers, user case 1 being that incident and user prioritization, time to resolution, and measuring efficiency and maturity. So first, on that incident prioritization, how do we deal with an overwhelming number of incidents? Are we creating hundreds or thousands of incidents for review? Is it misconfigured policy? Are we just not handling data properly? How can we filter through all of the noise and find the true risky incidents and concentrate on them? Also, how can we additionally highlight user risk? For time to resolution, how can we drive an incident to resolution, essentially speed up this process How can we track and give timelines? How can we automate incident classification? Can we bulk remediate to remove concentration on higher risk incidents? And finally, can we make it easier for our remediators to work on an incident? And then lastly, on the measuring efficiency and maturity, what do our managers or executives need? Maybe incident reports or incident trends. How best is it to generate and report on the incident numbers? Can we see a reduction in incident numbers after policy improvement changes? But what it all boils down to, which I think is a quite key one for this last one, is can we show efficiency and maturity improvements in the entire DLP program? Okay, so what does ICA bring to the table to help with these user case challenges? I will deep dive on these later, which form part of the demo at the end. But for incident and user prioritization, can we utilize ICA? If we start with the incident and user prioritization, we can utilize ICA unsupervised machine learning, allowing ICA to filter through huge volumes of DLP incidents to achieve a flag for high risk users, highlight behavior that is deemed normal and behavior that is not, reduce false positives by identifying legitimate business processes, not malicious behavior, filter through all of the noise, allowing true risk-based prioritization. For time to resolution, we can utilize ICA's supervised machine learning that uses responder and analyst input to learn, allowing for auto classification of incidents, acceptable violation, investigate, automated remediation of frequent low risk events using classification, bulk remediation using ICA's onboard remediation capabilities. And we can also create action plans or work queues to drive incident resolution or maybe follow an escalation path. And then lastly, for measuring the efficiency, ICA has advanced investigative capabilities and response workflows, which is presented via clear dashboards and an intuitive user interface. And quite an important one, actually, ICA also includes trending reports based on metrics, both out of the box. Again, there are a significant number of these that are out of the box, and they are also customizable. Okay, right.
Always good to have some templates in there, Darryl.
Pardon? Absolutely, yeah. And I must admit, on all of the levels, and we'll talk about some of these key components, be that its scenarios, be it these trending reports, all of these aspects out of the box. ICA does have quite a comprehensive list of these. They aren't called templates in ICA, but as you mentioned it, you could probably refer to them as templates that are reusable, and you can configure and tweak them to maybe slightly change them to meet another requirement. There is loads of them. They are very, very, very useful and very powerful. So taking all of this into the DLP program, what this leads to is these three major user case benefits that ICA can bring into your DLP program: the DLP incident prioritization, the reduction in incident remediation time, and it allows you to measure the efficiency and maturity of the DLP program. As a part of today's session, we will drill down into each of these three user cases and show how it's achieved inside of the console in the demo. The fourth item on that slide highlights the move away from that incident view to a risky behavioral based view. That'll become apparent as we walk through the demos later in today's session.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I
how?
think that, sorry, I was going to say that one for me, I think it's one of the most critical things, isn't it? Shifting to what's truly risky and dangerous.
You're looking at a bulk number of incidents, be that based on a scenario, be that based on risk, all the way throughout ICA. You're not looking at an incident view. You're looking at a number of incidents based on particular behavior. This is the sort of the first step in the system to speeding up that remediation further down the workflow.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how does ICA work with DLP? Following initial ICA installation, ICA is a blank canvas. First, you need to feed in the DLP data into ICA for it to be analyzed. So in our scenario now, be that DLP core or CloudSOC. Then once we've brought that data in and our processing jobs prior to our processing jobs run, we would then layer over some of that HR or Active Directory data into build out to the DLP based data. So that actual processing, if you look at the top of the slide, you've got phase 1 to 4. So whilst it's pulling in that data, it's running through this 4-phase processing methodology. Phase 1 is data enrichment. Here we are enriching that data with the business content that you see below, the HR data, the Active Directory data. So that users manager, department information, their peers inside the department. Once it's completed that, phase 2 is normality scoring. We can now categorize normal versus unusual versus very unusual. Over time, as I mentioned, the more this normality scoring is completed, the more effective and robust it becomes. And then phase 3 takes all of that into account and completes the scenario analysis. So scenario analysis is looking for important scenarios that stand out. 5 incidents today, 5 incidents by a user. So it is really about correlation and aggregation of rules. For example, show me my people who have been blocked on email more than 5 times a day. Show me all the blocks for this particular user for today. Or maybe show me users with a leaving date with incidents. And then finally, phase 4. It's now applying risk scoring and asset ranking, essentially taking all of those pieces of the puzzle and working out a user risk score. This is done using predefined or custom created risk vectors. I have a whole slide on that later. What it's then doing is then ranking them against the actual entities that they came from, which users are standing out compared to their peers, which users are standing out compared to the whole company. And then this all drives in to those benefits that we've all talked about. All this leads back into those DLP user cases. And we can now decrease our resolution time with incident prioritization, and we report on all of this and measure our efficiency and maturity. Okay, so before we talk about key components, what I wanted to first talk about or highlight are a few common ICA platform roles that you would see in place for ICA with DLP specifically. Although they probably fit with other data sources, these are specifically aligned to DLP. You can see on the top of the slides, we've got the responder and the responder icon, analyst and the analyst icon, and then the CXO or CISO. icon at the top. What I've done is when I move on to the key component slides, I've also included those icons again, if they are relevant to those as a role. You'll see that when we move on to them in a second. So first, the responders. Responders are going to actually tackle incidents and drive incidents to remediation. They're going to be able to understand what the incidents mean. Are the incidents important? Are they usual? Are they unusual? Are they acceptable? Do they need to be investigated? So the responder is going to know what each of these incidents mean and actually take action upon them. Within the ICA portal, they're going to be using dashboards. They're going to be using saved reports. They're going to be accessing the DLP pages and the action plans. Now, the analyst, you could probably say that there is a little overlap between the analyst and responder with similar activities, but primarily the analyst will take information from the responder on what they require. It will also take information from the CISO on what they require. They will use that information and now build out the ICA environment. So essentially, they're going to create and configure the following key components that I'm going to talk about on the ICA platform: dashboards, scenarios, risk vectors, risk models, metrics, and scorecards for the folks that use the platform that need it. And then there's the CXO or CISO, essentially the individual that is ultimately responsible for the DLP program. They're going to need to see metrics, scorecards, and review the trends and the health of the DLP program. And I couldn't fit it all onto one slide. I have another slide to talk about, last but definitely not least, the ICA administrator, the person responsible for the ICA application itself, essentially owning the platform configuration. For example, role-based access controls, platform troubleshooting, those database processing jobs and the health of those. Not to underestimate it, but the ICA admin role is critical to the platform's success. They would highly likely hold a good relationship with the analyst, educating them on the correct configuration of the dashboards and risk vectors, etc. Okay, so onto these key components and a little bit more information about each of these key components. So we'll start with dashboards and metrics. So really, dashboards are the way to present data to users in a consumable and familiar format, and that's to all levels. So they have all the same information, but you can present this information to users and roles in a number of different ways and target the correct information to the right user or role. You can have different roles or that have access to different dashboards. So you can control that with quite a comprehensive role-based access control. So looking at that screenshot slide, you can start with these dashboards. So you can just make them out. There is quite a small font on them, but you've got from the top left to right, you've got your top users with very unusual incidents. So that is a list of the riskiest users. So you're starting up with a list of individuals. Then and that's the form of that dashboard. You've got the second one across, which is using a bar chart, All of these dashboards, by the way, you can use these to drill down into. So you've got the incident view there. You can actually, any one of those orange segments where you're seeing a bit of a spike in very usual incidents, you can double click on that particular section. It will take you into it and show you more information right down to the incident information itself. We will see that in the demo. So those are, in that particular screenshot, are incidents which are relevant to the responder and the analyst, with the bottom two dashboards showing, the one on the left showing totals based on scenarios, so on that behavior. The one in the middle at the top with the orange is based on that normality rating. And at the bottom right, that is showing totals based on risk models. I will come on to risk models in a couple of further slides. So that's the analyst and the responder. That's the, I zoomed in on the spikes for the normality, which you can, as I mentioned, you can drill into any of those. You've got, you can also drop into those pie charts. Again, you can, this one is showing incident totals rolled up by channels. So you've got USB, SMTP, local drive. You can then again drill into these and have a look at the incident information details behind that actual dashboard. This now we're moving on more to the CISO. So this is the health indicators. I won't dwell on this too much because you do see it in the lab, but here is where we're showing dashboards that have got metric scorecards that are showing trends. This is the sort of information that you can view and then click on to get additional information to see what the trend is for that particular total. The percentage of users with DLP incidents, are they going up? Are they going down? Red or green? We'll see that in the demo. Okay, entity collections. Entity collections are basically the ability to say, I want a group. I'm not sure whether I missed a couple of slides out. I don't think I have.
I didn't keep track of all the numbers, but it seems to look right.
Yeah, it is. Sorry. So the entity collections are basically the ability to say, I want to group people, users, computers, things together that meet a specific criteria. As an example, I want to utilize a scenario where I just want to deal with people with DLP incidents over the last 90 days. You can create scenarios using entity collections. So you can tie these in to scenarios so you can build out that bigger picture. You can also tie them in and use them into risk models. So tie in a particular container of people, users, computers into these types of risks. There's not too much to them, but it's important to know that these are there and that you need to create them to use in those risk models and scenarios. As a practical example of implementation, we've done, for a recent customer, we've actually created a collection of users specifically for those users that are on a performance improvement plan. So something out of the norm, away from the box, something that's not going to come straight out of Active Directory or HR. So these entity collections are incredibly powerful feature and allows you to refine what you're trying to target. Okay, how are we doing for time?
We're doing very well. We're 48 minutes into the session.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay, risk vectors. and risk scoring. So risk vectors are a measurement used to calculate user risk. Risk vectors compare activities and incidents to similar activities and events over a time period. The default is a 90-day period. It is configurable, but everything that ICA does and analyzes is over that 90 days, and they are used to calculate risk scores. This is achieved by assigning each individual risk vector a risk weight, commonly 1 to 10. This risk weighting out of the box is static, but can be configured. So, as an example, the common 1 being the lowest risk and 10 being the highest risk weighting associated against that risk vector. I have seen customers that have tweaked that, and they've gone to 1 to 15, with 1 being the lowest risk, 15 being the highest, giving them a slightly larger scale for that risk assignment. But common practice is to stick with that 1 to 10. Okay, back on the actual slide itself, you'll see that represented. On the right, you can see the risk score of 91. So the lower the risk score again, lowest that number. So 10 is far better than a 90. That risk score is resultant of that user's number of incidents from the list of risk vectors that you can see just below it. So you see the 91 just below the risk vectors, you've got those risk vectors. So those risk vectors, the more incidents that are in those risk vectors that have been triggered specific to that incident, the higher that risk score will be. But all of those risk vectors, remember that they've got a weighting. So more incidents in a higher weighted risk vector is going to have a greater impact on those that have a lower risk weighting. That risk score, that risk score can now, as of version 16 of DLP, you can take that risk score back into DLP, and you can use that to start configuring policy based on that risk score. So manipulating how you would respond dependent on a low, medium, or high risk score that it's received from ICA. Okay, Clive, probably what I'll do is work till we get to the hour, and then maybe have a break on the hour, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely perfect, Darryl. I do say there is a sort of question that I'll phrase up to you here. I have answered some questions in the thing, but more to the point, I want a bit of clarity. You know, this tool isn't designed to be real time. It's designed to identify risk with some lag behind time. So there's sort of question in there really asking about timings, and my answer there was that, you know, there's this nightly job that runs. I know you mentioned that a little earlier, Darryl. We could do import jobs a bit faster. I think that's quite configurable, 1, 2, or 4 hours if you're pulling data.
No, so it is all. As you say, it isn't a real time platform. So you've got your intraday jobs, which is sort of pulling data in from where it has it, some medium manipulation on it, but that intraday jobs aren't having a significant impact on what the analysts will see inside the platform in relation to risk calculation and that behavioral normality. That is something that is completed in that bulk overnight job. So it is. So yeah. So it'll bring all its data in for a particular day. It will compute that, analyze that, and then the following morning when the analysts come in, that will all be ready and available for them to start actioning on. But no, it's not real time. There is that overnight delay before the ICA platform is up to speed on it.
Absolutely. And that was all by design, folks. That's not like because it just doesn't do it. It's how the tool's
Yeah.
been built.
I'll have a look. Were there any other notable questions in the actual chat? I'll have a quick.
Well, just for everyone's benefit, they're in the answered side of things there, Daryl. So someone asked, is there any training on the portal? And there is, but the trick to that is to log on to the partner portal, click on the Learning at Broadcom link, and then search in full for Information Centric Analytics. Excuse my spelling mistake in there, by the way, when you read that. But so don't just search for ICA, you won't find enough. But do the whole thing, you'll find an awful lot. Someone asked if we will be recording this, and the answer to that is yes, we will. There's always a little delay between us doing a recording and then publishing. There will be more recordings done later in January. That might sound a long way away, but it really will fly by, won't it? The next few weeks we'll be on the festive season, for much of us to celebrate that. And then into January, and we're going to have some more done then and all published on the portal. But by all means, there's things there now. Daryl, we answered the question. Thank you for that about processing times.
Yeah.
I put something in there. We had someone talking about sizing. Actually, there was quite a reasonably good sizing guide actually as part of the tech docs for ICA. So I've posted a link up in there, and Richard, I hope that's enough to get you going there.
Thanks for that, Clive.
No
Yeah,
worries.
it's very thorough, that guy.
And there was one more, and I will ask you actually. Don't normally ask questions directly because I know you've got a lot to do in this presentation. But just in case you happen to know, there was a question about, do we have a timeline and review about? I'm going to phrase it this way. I know it's not quite how it was in the question, but perhaps using ICA to feed directly into CloudSOC UEBA and producing a risk score there. I haven't seen a roadmap thing for that, so don't know.
No, I haven't. So what we do have is we've got, so you've got your UEBA inside the CloudSOC platform. So this is, and there is a roadmap to port all of the content that we've got in, or a significant part of that content that we've got in the on-prem or standalone version of ICA into the portal. That's an ongoing exercise. So it is a port of the actual ICA platform in there. I don't know the answer to when that isn't. I think there is a future roadmap session to come up on that I'm quite looking forward to see. But it's probably a question that I will try and answer and feedback. But yeah, there is timelines. I don't know, but there is a constant roadmap to take all of that functionality and features that are in the platform over to CloudSOC.
Do you know what, Dale? Whilst we've been chatting, 2 new questions have come in. As we're heading up towards the top of the hour. Let's quickly do those 2, and then I'll let you finish up. So the first question, I don't know if everyone can read the questions or not here. The first question is, I don't know what's going on. Can you share some use cases when ICA, it says required, but I get the sense of what you really mean here. When ICA would be useful, I think it says when you've got Carbon Black, DLP, CASB, web security, and something else. So the whole point of the tool, realistically, it's to work with DLP. You've got DLP core, got that put in, and now you want to shift to some different things. You want to shift to a risk-based view of the world. You want to make incident response faster and easier. But what you're really looking for here is, well, what was the most dangerous thing? So imagine the scenario when we have multiple inputs to UEBA. We're always going to want to take DLP. Someone's trying to get it out by the printer fax driver. Someone's trying to email, or you use some kind of share somewhere to exfiltrate data, or even to USB. Well, that's okay. That's bad enough. But where else do we add in? Well, let's say we're now bringing in other stats. So actually, they're often trying to go to some other, rogue site, or they're having more issues on their endpoint than normal. They're picking up, we're detecting malware or something bad. So now we're going to start to pivot and think, well, actually, you know, it could well be the user because they're doing some bad things, or maybe there's something else here at play. A malicious actors in there, or some malware is doing something. So it opens and broadens your vision. But most importantly, it's bubbling up what are the riskiest things in your organization for some reason right now. Daryl, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so and you could probably align the risk models with that. So you'll see that in the actual demo. So risk models sort of sit over the top. So you have a risk model, and it's almost like a bucket or a container for types of behavior, but that behavior can span all the data sources, but it will still flag up and come up to the top. So if you have a HR integration, and that within that HR integration you have an employee that is marked with a leaving date, then you have a DLP data integration, and you have a significant number of DLP-based data in motion-based incidents. Then you have a proxy integration, and you are seeing a user that is accessing job sites, is working outside of, is uploading CVs to particular sites. Yeah. That all gets built out, and that all becomes a view on one single pane of glass. That's the risk models. You'll see that in the risk models.
All right, last one we'll take very quickly. Can you install ICA with SQL Standard Edition? My answer here is no. It's as per the requirements. It requires the Enterprise Edition, and then on top of that, we add, sitting next to it, of course, for those of you who know SQL, Microsoft SQL Server Analysis Services. So there's no support for standard, and to the best of my knowledge, it wouldn't install properly, unless you've tried it, Daryl. But
no, you're bang on.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Back to you then, Daryl. That's the question.
Okay. Well, we've just we've reached the hour. If we want to take a 20-minute break.
Sounds perfect to me. So wherever you are in your part of the world, most time zones will make it the top of the hour. There are a few 30-minute ones, but it doesn't really matter. Wherever you are, set your little alarm for 19 minutes, so we're all back nicely on time. So make your tea, make your coffee, do what you need to do. We'll see you back here in 20. Thank you, Daryl, by the way. Fantastic.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I'm going to pause the recording, so when we get back to it, if everyone can remind me to turn that back on again, that would be marvellous. Thanks.
Yeah.
There we go. So the recording is back. So welcome back, everybody. Hope you're all refreshed. Same to you as well, of course, Daryl. So let's carry on with the second half of the session. Thank you.
I presume you can see the main slide.
Yeah, key components, it says.
Okay, yeah. We got up to 22, didn't we? Which was risk vectors. That one. Okay.
Yep.
Right. So we've got only a handful of slides left now to go through the final couple of key components. After that, I will then, I've got 3 slides that they are precursors to the demos. So they are aligned with those user case benefits that we talked about at the start. So I will bring up a slide, talk about that particular user case challenges, and then drop into the lab environment and show you the actual locations and the places inside of ICA that bring about those benefits that we've talked about. Okay, so event scenarios. Event scenarios, essentially, they are configured as sets of events that meet a criteria. If you think about DLP scenarios, excuse me, DLP risk is often identified by certain patterns or certain events that happen in a pattern. For example, a user sending an email that gets blocked because it included a file with a single piece of sensitive information. One email doesn't really flag an incident, but say that user sent 50 spread over 1 hour. So they send using that constant of drip leakage. So 10 social security numbers every 10 minutes. So that 50 social security numbers emailed out the door in an hour. Individually, these are low match counts and might not be picked up. If that happens daily over a course of time, then these all add up to a bigger issue. This is that low and slow method. And this is something that these event scenarios can pick up. So you can build out a particular scenario that can be a rolled up scenario based on a total, or it can be a time series based on a particular number of events, a particular size of an incident over a particular time. It's all around building out that picture or that behavior into a scenario that then can be used, as we previously talked about, in the things like the risk vectors and dashboards and a couple of other things. Okay, so last couple of slides before the demo. Risk models. Now, I have touched on this. So a risk model is a collection of event scenarios that are ordered in a kind of increasing risk. So essentially, risk models are a container for these. It includes cards. You can have up to 8 cards across a particular risk model. The example that we've got in the demo includes 3. And then what you do when you've got those 3 cards is you drop your scenarios or risk vectors into those cards. So a common example in that 3-card configuration is you would have, moving from left to right, you would have low severity on the left, titled potential data loss, and that you would include in appropriate scenarios associated with that. You would have medium severity in the middle with suspicious events and events associated around that. And then the third one being high severity with persistent types of incidents. So multiple incidents in an hour or multiple incidents per day. You'd build it out that way. You'll see it in the lab, but essentially that risk model is a container for all of these. And what it provides is, and you do have those lists of top offenders that we have lists for those top triggering risk models. So those risk models by user that are being flagged up the most, you can go straight to those. And essentially what you do is you go into a risk model column, you look at the most riskiest offender, and you click on that, and you see one pane of glass that shows you those 3 cards, potential, suspicious, and persistent. And then you see all of those incidents in one view and how many incidents have been triggered associated against that. So that is a one user view across all data sources, across showing all of those incidents that have been triggered. There are again, it's another one of those types of component that we have templates, for want of a better word. There are a number of out-of-the-box risk models in there that are built out to inside a threat. We've got quite a common one we use is the potential lever. So this is bringing in some of that HR data, but it is all built out to contain that data and present it in a single pane of glass. You can take those templates and you can then configure them and say, I want to add in another card. I want to bring in another type of card or another type of data loss, and bring in particular or your own individual custom scenarios into that. You can build out a picture that is completely aligned with the types of events you're looking for. So if you've got 8 different types of events that you want to look at, you can have absolutely every single one of those events in a risk model. And if you've got one individual that is triggered on all 8, they're highly likely to be at the top of the list, and you can go straight into that and see them, get visibility of that straight away. Very, very powerful stuff. Very, very quick to see those individuals that are firing or triggering incidents across all of those data sources, or a significant number across multiple scenarios in, say, just your DLP program. So that's risk models. Action plans. So here, action plans is the internal workflow for within an ICA to allow you to say escalate a individual incident or multiple incidents. Part of that reviewing process, if there is an unusual spike on a particular day that triggers very unusual incidents that you see from one of your normality presenting dashboards, you can click on that. You can select all of those incidents specific to that particular total and then associate it with an action plan. Those action plans are then associated with individuals that then can see a visible workflow of how those incidents have moved through that escalation and review process. I'll drop into them and you will see it in the demo, but essentially it's the internal workflow for the ICA platform. Okay, right, so that's the last of the list of key components. What I'm going to do now is I have a single slide that talks about the incident prioritization user case. Once I've walked through that single slide, then I'll drop into the demo and I will walk through the appropriate portal locations that are aligned with that. Then I've got a second and third slide, which are relevant to the time to resolution and the maturity benefits. Okay, so the first slide. So DLP only challenge here. DLP presents us with, as we know, flat incident lists. It's up to the remediator to sort the incident into meaningful buckets so that they can be triaged. It's incident by incident management, which can be death by 1,000 paper cuts, which is a term that's quite often used. We can sort incidents by a lot of factors: policy title, destination, sender department, protocol, but it's up to the analyst to define these fields for correlation. And sometimes those patterns aren't always obvious. So the solution, or the ICA solution, is automation and correlation through the use of AI and those machine learning engines that we've talked about. What we would really like to see instead of the above is some analysis performed on these incidents in an automated fashion, using multiple factors so that we can pinpoint those riskiest incidents and those riskiest behaviors. A high number of incidents alone might not be the best indication of risk. What about things like destinations, incident match counts, severity, the time of day, users' job responsibilities, users' history of violations, the type of data they are transferring, the mechanism they are using to transfer. These are all important considerations as well. These are all something that are usable and prevalent throughout the ICA platform. Okay, so what I will do is stop. I'll have this. Oh, hang on a second. If I cancel this now so I can drop into, give me a second, bring in the lab. Okay, can we now see the lab environment? Clive? I'm guessing we can.
Sorry. I lost the unmute button. Yes, we can. Sorry.
Okay. Right. So in here, so with that incident prioritization in mind, this is the first. This is the drop page. So this is the cyber risk threat detection. This is the inside the overview dashboard. You will see in that top section, just a word, this is demo data. There's nothing real world in any of this. This is all a standalone environment that has demo data injected into it. So it won't be firing on everything. It fires on most things enough to give you a meaningful demo today, but it won't fire everywhere. So that top section, if that was real world data and it was relevant, you would see those 4 cells there, the data loss and service disruption populated with the most riskiest entity in those. So as soon as you go into the platform, this is the most riskiest, we'll go to here first. Below them, you've got those additional lists by risk, with on the left, top users by risk, top computers by risk, and those top risk models by list. So you've got that one that I mentioned in the potential flight risk, which is the quite a common one, where we have those, we amalgamate those DLP type data events with somebody with a leaving date or using job site access or CV transfers. I will come back to that in a second. What I wanted to do here is show where we can actually get locations where we can start to look at not individual incidents, but rolled up bulk incidents. To that, we would go to our data loss prevention tab. So we have a number of tabs here. We've got the DLP overview tab and the DLP policy assessment, which I'll talk about in this section. The others I will leave for the following on sections. So we've got the DLP overview. Again, we've got a replication of that top users risks, those with very unusual incidents. But what you'll see here is on the DLP incidents by individual normality rating, you'll see that one on, what date is it? The 9th, which is showing a spike. Before I drill into that, you've got the totals and the rolled up totals at the bottom, which are by scenarios. So if we areas of no risk, as an example, we've got special accounts, we can map that out and we can see things like planned departure date, terminated employee, contractor unusual. So you would see totals in there of maybe 50 or 100 incidents. You can click on that and then go into all of those and get a view of all of those incidents, which we'll see in a second, and then action them. So to do that, we will do it by looking at our very unusual incidents here. So if we double click on the actual bar charts. We then get all of those incidents on the next level down shows all of those incidents broken out by its DIM policy channel on the left, policy name on the left. So we've got source code, whatever your policy's name, it would be reflected on there, and then you've got it broken out there. So if we take the top one, the largest one, source code as an example, and double click on that, we then get to see those totals from that line broken down into the totals that we see here. So we've got 9,800 that are very unusual. From those, if we go to that total, double click on that total, we're then taken into a 3-tab representation of those 9,000 plus incidents. So we've got summary information. On those incidents, we've got top users incidents with them, a little bit more. You would see an event history timeline at the bottom. It's not showing because this is demo data. If it was real world data, you would see that. You will see that in a second and how that's visually represented when I hop onto an individual user's profile page. So differences, it shows a little bit of information about the differences between them here by source user, channel, protocol, severity, match count, etc. You can configure that and change that. Then we move on to probably the most important tab, the details tab. So here we've got a representation of all of the incidents associated with that initial bar chart that we selected. So those 9,500 incidents, we now see them in a linear form. 9,000 is quite a lot to start looking at. You put in the real world, you're probably looking at something with a smaller total, but it's completely possible to do that from here. So what you are able to do for these incidents is either click on them individually and you get visibility of the actual incident information or the incident data that's passed over from DLP, or rather than so that particular one incident, once you've had a look at it, you can then look to action it or assign actions to it, which I'll come to in a second. You can do that on an individual one, or you can do that on multiple incidents. Whatever you select, be that one or all, it will apply the same action to it. I'll drill down a little bit further from another location. That's showing you a route down to get the incident information view. We can also go back to our top risk users. So we've got a list here, which is a total. So we've got David is right at the top, essentially classed as our riskiest user. So it's another place, it's another top level location where we're able to look at a number of incidents, not an individual incident. So if we click on David, it takes us into his profile page. So at the top, we have, if I just expand that, we've got that AD or that HR data. So information that we've extracted relevant to peers, department, manager, and you'll see over here, planned departure dates. If you can see that, if I highlight it, planned departure date, actual departure date, departure reason. So that's HR-based information on his page about David. But what you'll see at the top is you'll see his risk rating, which is classed as critical, because he's that percentile, which is from 1 to 0. So the riskier that David is, that from 1 to 100 is where David will sit in that scale, and which will push him up up that top riskier list. So if we move down, we've got that the band just below that, which is showing you risk models that that David has triggered and is associated with. I won't drop into that now because I will come on to that in another slide where we look at the risk models, but that is linked into the individual's user profile. If we scroll down, what we've got here now in this middle band is that risk information. So you'll see the presentation of David's risk score. You will see that percentile of where he is associated relevant to his peers. And then you've got this risk rating web on the left-hand side. So you've got all of those risk vectors and scenarios that David has triggered. But what you've also got is how they are compared to peers with the same manager. Peers with the same manager and peers within with the same department. So you get an idea of whether the types of spikes or the types of high incidents that are associated that it's something that just he's doing himself, or there are a number in the team that are following the same sort of path, being a broken business process that needs to be addressed. So it's to the right hand side of that again. So as we mentioned in the slides, we've got that risk score, which is resultant on these risk vectors that are below. These risk vectors are out-of-the-box risk vectors and are configurable. You add to that, you can create your own risk vectors based on particular behavior that you want to look at. I'll drill into one of those in a second, but just below, some additional information associated with David and those incidents associated with himself is we've got a relationship graph, which you can zoom into and look at those relationships between the data, where it came from, etc. What we also have to the right of that is event volumes over time. So it shows you a graph of and highlights where there have been spikes or drops in that those events and the actual data itself by volume. And then below that, which I think is really cool, it shows you a full timeline of all of those incidents and how they occurred and in that timeline, which I think is pretty cool. Okay, so that's the individual user's profile page. If we go now to click on and start to again drill down into those incidents, if we click on all dim incidents, so again we get those three tabs where we've got the summary, the difference, and the details of those tabs, of those events, sorry, and we've got 590. Again, the timeline sat below that, but here, if we go to the details page, we can now look to action some of those. So we've got escalate. You can assign it to a queue, which can be used as part of the workflow to remediate it. You've got resolution. Again, on one, multiple, or all of those incidents, you can provide a resolution. You can provide comments. That resolution will be based on your response rules in Active Directory, in DLP, sorry, which will then be passed back to DLP. You can choose to do that or not. Those DLP incidents will be updated with that information that's sent back. And then you've got the action plan. So that action plan that I mentioned in the slides. So here you can add one, multiple, or all incidents to that action plan. And actually go to the action plan itself. So here you can give the action plan a name, give it a priority, assign it to a queue, and you can also include as a starter, you can include in recommendations for what should be conducted as a part of this action plan or this escalation. It's all visible. You can look in at all the stages of this action plan and what has been associated with it. It is extremely powerful. Okay, right. So I think that's probably it for the incident prioritization. It's
very cool technology there.
It is, yeah. There are just a number of places where you can go. If I go back to the DLP prevention, so here you've shown where I've drilled into those, and we've had a look at the incidents. We've got the DLP policy assessment tab, which is more of those bar charts, but based on different scenarios, all of which you can drill into. If you go back to these risk totals here, we've got events by high. These totals here, again, these are all peaks and buckets of incidents based on particular scenarios that you can then click on and go into and look to investigate and remediate those based on that particular criteria. And I think it all comes back to the main one, which for me is one of the most significant, is based on that normality rating and having a look at those and addressing those. So that is those initial ones. What I'd like to do now is go back to a single slide and talk about the second slide. So okay, has that come up now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, so resolution time. So the DLP only challenge here, the DLP management console in the Enforce server presents us with some limited automation utilities to resolve incidents. Reusable responsibles is certainly a valuable tool. Also using email templates to send notifications out to employees. However, the workflow capabilities have certain limitations. We often see teams will keep these procedures outside of the DLP to track those follow-up actions through SharePoint, ServiceNow, or the tracking systems. That's not ideal. So what I would like to do is drop back into the lab. Oh, sorry, I've stopped sharing. Wrong button.
No problem.
Okay, so if we drop back into the lab. And look at.
That's better.
So we've looked at that DLP overview. We've looked at the policy assessment. So what we've got here, when it catches up, okay, so we've got the DLP remediation assessment tab. So we've looked at those totals and those things that are brought out of the box, and we've gotten visibility of those spikes. So this all ties in with the supervised machine learning. So we've talked about that classification. Unfortunately, as this is a demo data platform, everything is in an unreviewed state. So as your analysts start to work through this information and making decisions on content, that supervised machine learning would start to assist in automatically making those decisions and reviewing these and putting that violation tab on it, putting that investigation tab on it. So if we click on one, we get a breakdown again of those incidents. If we look at, how does I do it now? Which ones did I select? I think I tried to pre-configure some of these for the lab demo. So we've selected the total of those. We're taken back in. I'm missing. Let me just refresh. It looks like I'm missing some tabs here. Bear me a second. Let me just refire it up.
Yep, no probs. It'll be there in a second, folks. Don't worry. What is it that you're firing up there, Darryl? Back to the console. Ah, yes. We can see that now. Not sure if you said something there. I think you're back. That's good.
Those list all were associated with that.
Hi guys, is anyone having issues with the audio?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, everyone. It's absolutely right. There is some audio issue here. I'm just trying to get hold of Darren in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for chipping in, Mark. That's a good thing. Let me see if I can nudge him here. He may just take back control actually and put it on a slide so that he's very aware of it. Hold on just a second. Okay. This quick.
What you can also do,
Darryl, we lost about 2 minutes of audio. I don't know if you could hear us okay there. Let me just take the share right back from him. Now, obviously, at this time, I've got to hope that Daryl is able to look at that screen. So we'll give him a second. Just hopefully he's going to notice that there's been a change in the presenter stuff.
How long was that like that for? Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, mate. Yes, you're back. Yeah, about 2 minutes.
Right, okay.
2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, it was really, really broken up for that last 2 or
Right.
3 pieces that you were running through. So, you know, when you went, you had to go and reload something, and we had the window screen for about 20 seconds. We didn't hear anything after that.
Right, okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll go back to data loss prevention. Remediation. So we've got these, this is the classification point. So this is where that supervised machine learning assists and helps out. So if this is, I don't know whether it was mentioned before or after it went quiet, but this is demo data. So this demo data is all blue and it isn't showing any of those classifications. It would, as you manipulate it to analyst input, change over time, and that supervised machine learning. So if we drill down into the first one, and it's broken down by that policy name to give you further separation. If we go into classification and look at that total, so we've got unreviewed. If we did have incidents here that were set as violation, it would show those classifications here. So we can actually drill into those and you get that view again. But what you get that same summary and differences tab information, but again, moving over to that, the details one, this is the powerful slide. So the powerful tab, should I say. So here, we can start to educate the system. We can start using the responders input, be that on one, multiple, or all of these incidents under this this particular total. We can then go and use the classification tab and set them, set that classification. So if you look at the source incident ID, you can actually look at the source incident information from there as a part of that review process. But once that decision...
Sorry, Darren, I've just realised that the slide's not up there either. I was listening intently to what you're saying, but we don't. We can't see your screen.
What's happened there?
Got that great picture, Warrington School of something.
Hang on a second.
Okay, no worries.
I don't know. For some reason, it stopped sharing. Let me know when it comes up.
I will do, don't worry. All right, we're back.
So now
sorry guys.
We've lost audio and lost video.
We are, but I think we're firmly back on track now.
Yeah.
You bring that up on the screen. Thank you.
So just to reiterate on that slide. So from here, this is the classification. We drill down into a particular classification. We are able to view and drill down into the incident to make a decision on the incident itself. And based on that decision, we can look to either by one or multiple or all modify that classification to acceptable, violation, and or investigate. This is where the supervised machine learning benefits come in. So what you're seeing here is the manual activities of that responder, but behind the scenes, based on those decisions in that classification, that supervised machine learning will start to automatically classify incidents itself. They will be given a classification. They will still be visible for verification, but based on what it's seeing, it will start to automatically classify those incidents. So a total of 10,000 incidents to start prior to any classification being manipulated. The responder starts to work on them, and making decisions. That supervised machine learning will be helping along. That will be starting to reduce those number of incidents, so that the responder doesn't surely need to go through everything, and that workload is significantly reduced. You've also got mitigate there. Giving it a mitigation will remove it from the queue. So another an important note on the sort of automated benefits of this is, if we go back to the risk overview dashboard, and we click on David again, if we go and look at some of these incidents rolled up by David, and we look at the details, what we can actually do here is, if we have a separate team of responders or analysts that are looking directly at the incidents themselves and those investigations and making resolution decisions from here, it's not configured out of the box, but what you can do is configure that that resolution decision to include the setting of a classification setting. So even though you're making a decision on the resolution of the incident, it is also included a change to the classification based on that. So it just assists and makes sure that any decisions that are being made, that decision is being captured in the classification, thus helping that automated, improving and helping those automated mechanisms. Okay. Right, so I'll be careful that I don't make the same mistakes as last time. I need to quickly drop back to the slides, to the last slide. Which is the okay. So the last one, the DLP only challenge here. So DLP reporting in the Enforce console works well for operational reports. Show me all of the current incidents. However, its capabilities are hard to stretch further than that. Summarizations are limited to a couple of factors. Sometimes fields aren't available. Incident data is also compartmentalized according to detection technologies, be that endpoint, network, cloud, discover. Now, we have to export that data to another engine and build out trending reports externally to the DLP platform. It can be extremely cumbersome and can require multiple days' effort of analyst time just to generate a simple report over a month-over-month incident trending. So if we go back to the back to the lab. Have we still got audio and video live?
I'm glad to say we do, Daryl. Thank you.
Right, okay. So
I'm keeping it up.
now we're looking at that reporting and that visibility and those trends. So we've looked at all of those dashboards which give the reporters, the responders, and the analysts those views of incidents, but we want to look at that CISO view. So that view where we're looking at the trends. So if we go to our dashboard section and click on the data loss prevention tab, click on data in motion, and we see our line-by-line view of, by scenario, those lists of incidents, and you'll see that trend to the far right, where it is represented in green or blue, and it shows those spikes and those peaks and troughs in those actual trends. So you can actually click on one, go into it, and get more information about that timeline for those peaks and troughs, when they went up, when they went down, and then information about the individuals that actually affected that change. What you can also do is change that view to a roll-up view, and then you get that rolled-up view of all of those scenarios based on here, as you can see, by department. So if we click on suspicious volume, you can see a view of specific to finance and suspicious volume, but those categories then broken out in there. Or you can click on the or and click on suspicious volume for all, where you'll see everything in relation. The key thing to take about this is as you would expect, if it's in red, it's heading in the wrong direction, and you maybe need to look at it and bring it in tow. If it's green, it's heading in the right direction. So they are some of those. The last thing to say on these dashboards for the responder and analyst, and these trend and metric-based information for the CISO, all of it is exportable. So you can bring that information out and show it in a meaningful way. You've got data by metrics, a slightly different categorization of that information, again, available by list or roll up. Apologies there, that is resultant on it being demo-based data. At least the data in motion user cases is firing up that and giving you that powerful red, green, and yellow view. Okay, that's probably it for the demos. I've got a couple more slides to just talk about, and then we can probably just open up for a few questions. Clive.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. There's a couple of Q&A things. We'll get back to those in a moment. You still with us, Darryl?
Yep, still coming over. Just bring these last slides over. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so last couple of slides I wanted to talk about. So we've talked quite a lot today about ICA and DLP specifically. So there is quite a common journey that's undertaken. We see quite a lot of customers that do start with that DLP optimization. So they would look to get those initial gains out of DLP. Look at those spikes in incidents where they've got very unusual behavior, start to then look to use that classification and start to educate the system. Once that's been in for a short period of time, then they would look to move on to that mature insider threats, bringing in additional data integrations that will work with the DLP, be that HR and the some of the information out of HR, which is the leaving dates, or endpoint information, endpoint and proxy, which is going to show up information related to maybe external job site access, TV transfers, and then the last one being cyber breaches. So bringing in those data sources that are going to assist with not so much the DLP optimization or the insider threats, but they're going to highlight incidents and bring them into a risk model that are associated with external threats. So it's quite a common path to see them and see that journey go that way. DLP optimization to start, the mature insider, and then those external cyber breaches and compromised accounts. And the last slide is just some information about usage. So this is, the first thing I'll say about this is real world data. This is information that has been fed back and collated based on real world use of our platform. So that customer return on investment, with over 80% reduction in DLP incidents that demand that specific analysis, the 85% decrease in analyst hours spent on low risk incidents, and then the last one with an 85% reduction in days and hours that are required to review policy. Quite a powerful slide, that. And just to say, that is real world data for some of our biggest accounts. Right. That's it.
Okay, that was, wow, that's a lot. Thank you, Daryl. Awful lot to see there, but what an interesting way to start to use all that collection of data, to drive up risk, tune policies, understand block but bulk accept incidents and things. So for DLP customers, that for DLP core customers, I should say, that's such a critical capability, I think, today for any well fleshed out one. We did have a couple of questions that have popped up in there. So there was a question about, I think I've understood what you mean by this, Søren. Does the solution work with multiple sets of data simultaneously, i.e. the demo data from Bay Dynamics, or it's our data really, but and a real DLP connection? So I'll tackle this first, Darryl. I don't know if you can see that question, but
I think I understand what he's asking, but yeah, go on, you shoot, and I can.
Well, my view of it is simply this: if you've ingested those incidents or events into the database, they are going to get processed. So that does give you the chance for multiple sets of data. It's whatever's in there is what we're going to report on. If people don't want certain types of data, then quite literally, you'd have to filter or don't ingest it. So reality is it works with multiple sets of data.
So I would add to that then, yes, absolutely it does. So what we have is, when we talk about our data integrations, is we have common methods of bringing that data in. The system itself knows about these integrations. It knows what to expect in the way of incidents from them. And there are out-of-the-box mechanisms to analyze that and bring up the risk associated with those particular platforms. And that is done across all data sources. If you have one data source, obviously we know how that works. If you have 4 data sources, it will look at them all together. That's where those risk models become powerful, because if you've got 4 data sources, you can build out those risk models to include scenarios or behavior across every single one of those different data sources. So absolutely, yes, it does. And you can actually work with that as well. So you can build out and define a model that is going to look for somebody that is generating incidents in each of them.
Fantastic.
And you can also, if you wanted to, it's quite a complex method, but we have a method of bringing in your own data source. Again, once you bring that data in, if you know what the incident type information is, you can build out your own risk associated with that. That would all be evaluated as it would with a common data integration.
Yes, for clarity, obviously those are things that you would build as partners for your customers, or maybe that they get the skills to build those themselves. This flexibility in the tool is what that means. We're not obviously offering to write the custom things that they need, but we give the tools to do it. The second one was, I actually had a fairly similar question for the first part of this, and I'll give an answer for the second one. So the question was, in the roadmap, is there an integration of ICA to DLP console in Force similar to CloudSOC? What the question might be is, please correct me if I'm wrong here, Soren. This is about, could we take ICA and send the data to CloudSOC? If that's true, we don't have an answer for that or a view of even a roadmap item. It's an interesting topic, though. So quite like the idea of that. And someone asked it earlier on too. So thanks, Robert, for that. The second part of that is Oracle able to support this analytics at some time in the future? Well, this ICA tooling was written specifically around SQL Server Enterprise and the I've forgotten what they call it now, but basically the thing that makes it to a queue, the analytics service, the SQL Server.
That's the key thing to this. The key thing to this is the most powerful part. We ran out of time, so we didn't get to talk about it, which was quite an in-depth component, which is the OLAB cube, the structure of that, and the analyzer that plugs into that. But that is so powerful because of SQL and because of that analysis services, that analysis engine component. I am not aware of any engineering effort that is being to look at that's been given to look at anything other than continuing with SQL, unfortunately.
Agreed. Many customers have both, and the majority are probably going to have the licenses for SQL Server Enterprise and the analysis service, MSSAS, as they call that. But no plans to move in that direction. All right, folks, look, if you have any more questions, now is the time to quickly put that into the Q&A section. Thank you all for participating here. There's a good number of questions have popped up. I think we've answered all of them, other than we don't know about the future of ICA to CloudSOC. Although it does sound like a great idea, we'll go with that.
Probably my last comment on that is, so obviously we've got the ICA platform itself, the on-prem one, that is continuing to be improved and moving forward. That has its own roadmap for improvement. And then you've got, to the side of that, you've got the CloudSOC portal, which is starting to adopt or ingest its own ICA components under that UEBA tab. So that has its own roadmap. But I think the long-term goal is to get everything that is in the on-prem or the standalone ICA into that cloud platform.
That's what I think, absolutely. So Daryl, look, it just remains for me to say, well, firstly, thank you to the audience. Thank you for spending so long with us today. And hopefully you've all taken something good for that session and can start talking about where ICA would fit and helping your customers, particularly those who already have DLP, those who are looking at it. This is a fantastic differentiator to add on to an already strong product for differentiation. Symantec DLP is really still a world-leading product. But of course, it was absolutely right and proper here to thank Daryl. Daryl, I know it takes a lot of time and effort to produce things and then come along and spend time with the partners here. But we thank you for it very much.
My pleasure. I can only apologise for the couple of minutes where we had lack of audio and lack of video. But yeah, absolutely my pleasure.
Yeah, well, it was super good. I'll answer the last question before we say goodbye. Will there be a link to the recording? The recording will appear in the partner portal pages. I guess we'll just tack it in under DLP. It'll be probably a week or so before it ends up there, but we will certainly make the recording available somehow. But it will be somewhere in the partner portal. So, you know, there's a dedicated ICA section, so it will come under DLP. All right, guys, well, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Same to you, Darryl. I think you deserve a decent cup of tea or coffee, if that's your preference. And hope to speak to you again soon. I'm going to start recording now as well.
Thanks, everyone. Cheerio.
Thank you. Bye-bye.